And welcome to Whiskey Politics. I'm Dave Sussman, your host and purveyor at whiskeypolitics.net. You can find us on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification button so you can get notified of upcoming interviews. And you can also find us on America's Voice Television Network and all of your favorite podcast applications, as well as the Ricochet Audio Network. And you can find me at David Sussman on Twitter. First, a little bit of housekeeping on our last interview with Cody Wilson. Cody Wilson was and is a self-described crypto anarchist, and his company is producing blueprints for people to be able to download so that they can create their own plastic handguns, working handguns, using his blueprints. And there's obviously a tremendous amount of controversy on all of this, whether we're talking about traceability or the rights for people to be able to print their own untraceable handguns, and all of the ramifications that may have on our society. Well, the YouTube comment boards went crazy on this because of really one question that I asked in relation to his idea that there should be no limits to free speech. And my question was to push back, what about downloading the plans for an atomic weapon? Or what about child pornography? Well, boy, heads exploded. And check it out. I think that you'll find some of the comments not just insulting, but also thought-provoking as well, because there are points there that were made that I thought were extremely pertinent and valid. But is there a slippery slope? Do we have limitations on free speech? Can anybody say and do anything in our country under the banner of 1A, even if you're not directly impacting or hurting people? So it's an interesting, thought-provoking interview, and I think 98% of it outside of that discussion point was exceptional. Cody did a fantastic job, and we look forward to maybe having him back on down the road. Today, I wanted to talk about something that has really been kind of bugging me for several years, but it's really now starting to percolate and come up in a major way. And that is the question on whether or not the idea of diversity should trump meritocracy. Well, we're seeing this now in our corporate boardrooms. We're seeing it in academia. We're seeing it in media. And the idea that somebody should get a job over somebody else because of their gender, because of their ethnicity. Does that seem fair? And does that create a blockade in a person's mind when they're trying to improve and become empowered and grow within an organization? That is one of several different issues that I wanted to talk about today with our guest, who is a fascinating woman who is empowering not just women, but also men, in enabling them to grow in their career, whether as an entrepreneur, whether in a corporate environment, or just making themselves better in their own lives. And what's more fascinating about some of the tools that she uses and talks about and has spoken about on multiple TED presentations and commencement speeches and television is that she comes from a background where you're going to be stunned by this. She could have gone either way in her life. I'm not going to steal the thunder because I've got a couple of questions on her, that are just incredible to me. But one of the things is that when you see somebody that faced formidable odds and have now become a major success and are now giving their life lessons to others to empower them, I really take that to heart and wanted to spread her message as well. Her name is Dima Ghawi. Like I said, Dima has spoken multiple different TED presentations. She's an author and a speaker. And so we'll get into all of this and a lot more with today's Whiskey Politics interview. So pour yourself your favorite drink, sit back and relax and enjoy the Whiskey Politics interview with Dima Ghawi. We're delighted here today to have with us somebody that definitely knows a lot about women's empowerment and leadership. I'm very excited to have with us Dima Ghawi. Dima, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So Dima, you are a 3 times TED speaker. You've climbed Mount Fuji. You are the author of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it's called Breaking Vases, Shattering Limitations, and Daring to Thrive, a Middle Eastern Women's Perspective. Is that right? So
yes.
let me first ask you this. You include in the in the title a Middle Eastern woman's perspective. Why was that something that you felt you wanted to share in the title?
So it's actually a Middle Eastern woman's story.
Okay.
So I talk about, yeah, and I talk about my perspective. So it is true. So I just wanted to share with the world my story, to give them messages of empowerment, help them realize that if I can do it, anybody would be able to discover who they are and go through a journey of leadership discovery and figure out what is stopping them and do something in order to continue to expand their potential. So it's mainly my memoir.
So you grew up in Jordan, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you tell us a little bit about your genesis, your childhood?
Oh, I was born in Turkey,
okay,
and raised in Jordan. My story mainly started when I was 5 years old. I was playing with my grandmother in her kitchen, and she held a glass vase and she told me, "Do you see this perfect glass vase? A girl is just like it. If it gets cracked for any reason, you can never fix it, you can never glue it back, and that's the one we throw in the trash." So what she really meant to tell me is that I need to be perfect. I need to follow, obey. I need to always worry about what people think about me, and otherwise I would be thrown in the trash. So the story mainly is about me being the perfect glass vase and doing what my community expected of me, but in the process, losing myself, not having a voice, being depressed. And the main part of the story is the journey of shattering that vase and being okay with being broken, and creating a new life that I absolutely love right now.
Well, you went through your own trials and tribulations to formulate this idea, correct? I understand that you were married and there were some issues that caused you to come up with this idea. You want to share a little bit about that?
So I got married very young. We initially got engaged when I was 19, and he was much older than me. Then we got married when I was 20, and we moved to San Diego. At that time, it was a traditional arranged marriage, and I had no idea. Like I was following, and everybody in my family were happy, so I was happy about this marriage. Moving to the US and observing my new community and how people have voices, have opinions, have dreams, I wanted to be like them. I aspired to be like that. But the more I wanted to grow and evolve, the more pressure I had to face of staying as the young woman with a perfect glass vase. And that created a lot of conflict in the marriage, to a point I couldn't stay any longer. I initially didn't want to leave. I was afraid of leaving. I was afraid of not being able to survive. I was afraid of the community and what my parents would think, especially if they would disown me. But it got to a point where I became so depressed and I needed to take action. And I was following my intuition. I have a wonderful, strong intuition, and it just kept telling me to move on, to feel the fear and to take action and to challenge the norm. So that is the story. But that is like a regular story of somebody leaving the marriage. The main story happened after I left, where really what my grandmother warned me about became a reality, where my entire community disowned me. My father has been trying to kill me for the last 17 years because he believes I brought shame to the family.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that. Your father,
yeah,
your father is trying to have you killed,
yes,
because you left your marriage.
Yes. It's in his perspective, I brought shame to the family, and it is something in my community. It's called honor killing, where they believe he's bringing back the honor back to our family, because he believed I did something wrong. So the only reason I'm alive is I'm in the U.S. and he's in Jordan. He doesn't speak English and he doesn't know how to navigate to find me here.
This is obviously a cultural issue. How much of this is a religious issue?
Not a religious. I was born Catholic.
You were?
So
okay.
A lot of people assume Islam and they start saying bad things. And I'm like, no, it is not Islam. I studied Islam when I was growing up because as part of the community I was living in. And it has a lot of wonderful things that the American people don't even know about. So this is not about a religion.
Right.
This is about mentality, it is about ego, it's about mental issues, it's about a lot of things that we usually don't talk about.
And so from a cultural standpoint, and it's interesting because I've known a lot of people that grew up in the Middle East and they went to Catholic school. We had Noni Darwish on a few months ago. She ended up in Cairo at a Catholic school, a phenomenal, very brave lady, very strong woman. And the same background, very, very similar to what you're talking about here. And so you grew up with this cultural perspective. You came to the United States. How did you end up in San Diego? You went to school there, is that correct?
So when I got married, my husband and I, we moved to San Diego together.
Oh, you came together. Okay.
Wanted to start a business. Yeah, he's a jeweler, so he wanted to start a jewelry company in San Diego,
yeah.
And that's how we ended there. Yeah.
Okay. So you left your marriage. You had an epiphany and awakening, if you will, and you went to school. And so what? Yeah. Again, continuing with the journey here. What happened when you went to USD, University of San Diego?
Yes. So I was taught early on an Arabic phrase that says "Al-ilmu nur wal-jahlu dhalam," and that means in English, knowledge is light and ignorance is darkness. And that's the problem. Yeah. If we so many people are living in the dark because they're not knowledgeable, they're not self-aware, they don't know who they are, and they end up staying in the dark.
Right.
So after I went through this horrible experience of my entire community disowning me and not having friends. I wasn't allowed to have friends as I was in that marriage. Not having enough money to survive. I was working, but I was barely making enough. I wanted a new story. I wanted a new life. And I wanted to change my perspective about myself. And the only way I knew how to do that was with education. So that's why I enrolled in the program at USD, University of San Diego. And
which is, by the way, a very hard school to get into. That's a great school.
Yes, it was my dream, and it came a reality. So I loved it because it was a small university. The classes were so small, and I got to have a lot of focus from the professors, and I needed that. The students are they're extremely smart, challenging, and I got to learn a lot from them. So after the first semester, one of my professors, his name is Dr. Starling, he reached out to me and he encouraged me to to be the president of the student organization, which to me is very funny because I was facing death threats. It was so new. I was heartbroken.
From your father?
Barely, heartbroken also from the marriage. I loved my husband. I just couldn't live with him because of all the verbal and mental abuse and all of this other stuff. But inside of my heart, I loved him. I didn't leave because I didn't like him. So to me, it was funny that a professor wanted me to take this leadership role. I always saw myself as a follower. I was taught to be a follower. And initially I said, no, I can't do it. I don't have the time. But I don't know until today why he kept insisting. Every time he saw me, he would be like, I want you to run for the president. So I wanted to to stop him from saying that. And in my heart, I assumed that the students would not vote for me. Why would they? I thought I had no skills. Well, I ran and everybody voted for me and I became the president. And I didn't realize then that a whole new journey was about to start for me, a journey of self-discovery, leadership discovery. And I didn't realize how amazing being a leader is. It's more fun than being a follower. So that really ignited my entire journey and everything that came afterwards. So the heartbreak didn't go away. The sadness was there, the fear for my life. I still have fear for my life for 17 years, but I will not allow that to stop me. I would not allow anybody to stand in my way. I face the fear and I keep taking action. And that's what allowed me to work so hard day and night to continue to educate myself. As I was part of the program, I decided to apply for various companies to practice interviewing skills. And I was shocked that every company I applied for, they gave me a job offer, which is so shocking because, again, I at that time, I thought that I had no worth. So at Journey Leadership, I got to work for IBM. I got to travel around the world, lead global teams, develop people. And the more I did it, the more I loved it, to a point I decided to do it on my own. And after working for IBM for 11 years, I resigned and I started my own company for leadership development. I do executive coaching, speaking at conferences, all of this good stuff.
It's quite commendable, and it's extremely inspirational. I want to get into all of the leadership attributes and the lessons and how you empower women through what it is that you're doing. But I have to touch back on this issue before we move forward, because I'm sure a lot of our viewers are watching this and they're just wondering. 17 years ago, your father obviously, you know, from a cultural standpoint, believed that the best approach to take to his daughter leaving the marriage was to have her killed. Where are you both today? Does he still carry that anger and resentment? And what's happened with your mother?
So I haven't talked to my dad for 17 years. He is in Jordan. Now I'm in Louisiana, and there's no relationship whatsoever. And it is so sad. It is heartbreaking. And every woman, every girl needs her father. But that is part that is missing in my life. But at the same time, I would rather have this situation, as hard as it is, than being being suppressed constantly and told I'm not good enough, and being forced to do things that I know are so bad for me.
And your mother's not involved in this at all?
So the abuse extended not just me, to my mom and my sister, and it is so crazy. Like, when every time I talk about it, I cannot believe it, but that's the reality, where he decided he's gonna kill my mom and my sister. So we had to have him escape. I know, it's so crazy. I know. The good news is the story has a happy ending. But at that time, he decided he's going to kill them. And he bought a gun, and he would sleep every night with a knife under his bed. So they would wake up and thank God that they're alive. So I had to have them escape. My mom left everything behind. She was in her late 40s. My sister was 17, had to leave everything. And they escaped. And it was so tough coming to the U.S. and creating a new life.
Are they all in the U.S. now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been, so at that time I was just either 24 or 25, and I was responsible for my mom, for my sister, for me. I wasn't making enough money. Of course, I was borrowing a lot of money on credit cards. For my school, I had to take a lot of student loans, and we managed to survive. We managed to support each other and to experience the pain together. So now I look back, and it is so worth it for where we are right now. But at that time, it was horrible. Like, we would have our pepper spray, and as we get to our one-bedroom apartment that the three of us were living in, that, by the way, had no furniture because we couldn't afford it, we would be holding the pepper spray and checking the cars in the parking lot. My mom and sister would go and check behind the doors because we were threatened. Our life was threatened. So we continued to live in fear, and it just became part of who we are. It became part of our life, but it did not stop us from continuing to move forward. And that's what matters.
Well, you were obviously raised, if it wasn't by your father, which it doesn't sound like it was, it must have been your mother, to maintain an inner counsel, to have a strong backbone, to be, you know, a stand-up, forthright person that has opinions, and that's commendable. And it's incredible that with for lack of a better term, no disrespect, but a sociopath as a father, that you've turned out, you know, the way that you have. So congratulations, and to your mother and your family as well. That's an incredible story.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. So coming back here, you ended up at USD. You got a job with IBM, and that took you around the world. And you got a select position. It took you to Japan. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
So
I got on.
we had an amazing woman, and I'm sure because of your women's leadership involvement, you've heard of her, Alison Levine. She's the only woman that's ever done what is called the Grand Slam, where she has peaked each of the 7 highest peaks of each continent around the world, plus traversed across the South and the Northern Pole. And she has a heart murmur. She's got a problem. She speaks for West Point, and she does a lot of leadership things as well. Talk a little bit about, and I really, coined into this because I'm also a mountain climber myself. So from my standpoint, obviously I have an interest in this because I believe there's a lot of leadership attributes in mountain climbing and group leading and the like. Talk about your perspective of, and if I understand correctly, it wasn't initially your idea, but you certainly embraced it, taking a team up Mount Fuji in Japan.
Yes, yes. So it was my manager's idea. Both of us, we were the 2 assignees in a team of over 300 Japanese team members. And the team morale was very, very low. He wanted to create a team building activity. So usually other people would have the team go have drinks, or they would do a volunteer activity. What my manager wanted to do is for all of us to climb the mountain together. And to him, he thought that would bring us together. So we initially had so many people interested, but the week of the climb, we ended with 4. So it was him, myself, and 2 Japanese team members. One of them was retiring that month. And the 4th one,
he was older.
He was
older, yeah.
Yeah, much older. Yeah, he was 60, I think 65.
That's not too old to climb a mountain.
And the 4th one is he was new in leadership, so he wanted to prove himself. And the main story is how our manager, when we got there, he had the plan, he had the reservations, everything. And then he looked at us and said, let's see who gets to the top of the mountain first. So he wanted to play a game. And he just left us. He left us behind, picked his stuff, and he wanted to get to the top of the mountain first. So the story is about a journey of what is a leader? Who is a leader? Is it really the title, or is it the person who may not have the title but walks with you step by step? I was so impressed by my team because they were there, the other 2 Japanese team members, they were there helping me, helping each other, helping other people. And it got really, really tough with the climb. But we figured out a way to support each other and continue to move forward. And I talk about when we got to the lodge, which was a place where we were going to eat and sleep. So we would wake up and continue to the hike. And once we got there, it was right after the kitchen closed, and our manager didn't save us any food. So he ate, he was happy. So it's about the leadership or the manager taking care of people. That's what matters. It's walking with them from the bottom of the mountain to the top and back to the bottom. And it is about the human element. It's not about the title. The problem right now with a lot of organizations that I consult with, and even with my work with IBM, a lot of people want to get into leadership role because of the ego.
Right.
They want, and we need a shift. There needs to be a shift in leadership. Leadership is not about that. It's not about the title. It is about taking care of people. It is about serving. It is about feeding them first. It's ensuring that they are feeling protected and they can trust their leader. So even though it's a story of a fun climb up the mountain, but it is filled with leadership messages that everybody needs to hear, regardless if it is low level in an organization to the president of the United States.
I think one of the greatest lessons in everything that you were just talking about, and this is one of the reasons why I love mountain climbing and I've led some groups myself, is because you are empowering people. And this is what you do. This is now what you're doing for a living. And you're giving people the opportunity to figure it out for themselves, that they can in fact do it. You know, the challenges, and if it's a corporate challenge of politics or competition or regulations, or if you're on a mountain, you're dealing with altitude sickness or tired, exhaustion or hunger, all of those things are challenges. And if you get somebody to realize, hey, I can actually do this, then there's a belief within themselves. But you talk about, and this is something that I found very interesting, you talk about, you refer back to your book, you know, you call it a glass vase, right? You talk about 3 evil vases that hold us back. You want to talk about that briefly?
Yes, absolutely. The three evil vases are the fear of making mistakes, the worry of being judged, and the aspiration for being perfect. And I see it over and over and over again. Women and men from around the world, they're afraid of taking risks and being courageous and following their dreams because they're afraid of making mistakes. And the reason they're afraid of making mistakes is because they don't want to be judged by others. And everybody wants to appear perfect. So we're covering ourselves with these masks that look perfect, but many people are lost and sad inside, and they're living a life that they don't even want. They're doing it because they want to continue to satisfy their family, their community, their friends, their manager, and they end up living their lives, losing themselves, and not reaching, not even close to reaching their potential. And what I tell everybody is, it is so normal. It is so normal to feel the fear, but feel it and take action anyway. Fear will never go away. Like, I live in fear all the time, and it will never go away. It's a matter of realizing it, seeing that it's there, and knowing that we have the power to continue to move forward. And yes, there's going to be people that judge us, and they're going to say negative things. But let me tell you, clean them out of your life. Those people that don't support us, they don't believe in us, even if it is our own, like in my situation, my own father, I had to put him aside because he was threatening my life and standing in my way. And it is so sad, but we have the power to choose who we surround ourselves with, people that are supportive, not judging us and making us live a life we don't want. And in terms of perfection, it is the vase where my grandmother told me about. And I'm shocked that so many people around the world, they are living with a perfect glass vase. They may not be told the story early on, but they're living with it. They want to be perfect. They want the perfect marriage, perfect job, perfect car, perfect house, perfect Christmas, perfect everything. But there's no perfection.
Right.
And they end up losing themselves. So that's the point. It is, I talk a lot about the beauty is in our cracks. The beauty is in our mistakes. The beauty is in our courage. It is in not being perfect. Actually, perfect is not beautiful, but that's what people aspire to live with.
You know, social media is definitely a culprit in this, because when we both go online and we see the perfect family and the perfect vacation and the perfect life, you know they're covering up for something. You know there's cracks there, and they're just overcompensating. I think that's I always say to people, that's a telltale sign something's rotten in Denmark right there. I want to talk a little bit more about the sociological impact of what you're having here, because we are in really interesting times right now. I want to talk about women's empowerment, women's leadership. And I understand that you're not just speaking to women, you're also speaking to men as well. But we're in a period right now where technology is changing our work environment to the point where a lot of people my age, I assume you're much younger than me, I'm almost 50, but the fact is that a lot of people around my age group are starting to turn around, and they're starting to wonder whether or not their jobs are going to be obsolete because of robotics or AI, which is coming on strong right now. It's going to be a hockey stick trajectory. There are a lot of jobs that are not going to be there in a few years. And so what are you saying to those people that are starting to be nervous and saying, look, I'm too old to go back to school and start over again? What do we do here?
We're never too old to develop new skills. It's not a matter of going to school and getting another degree and putting it on the wall. It's a matter of realizing what does the market needs and adapting to that. The problem is so many people, they are comfortable. They've been doing a job for a while. They're comfortable. They're waiting for another 10 or 20 years to retire. And you're right. There's a major change, and we're living it right now. And there's more change coming up our way as well. It's a matter of continuing to see what are the possibilities, what is the demand, and to learn to continue to be competitive. And realize that whatever worked for us in the past is not going to work for us in the future. Yes, there are going to be a lot of jobs that will be taken away by AI and robotics and all of this stuff. but there's going to be a lot of jobs that will open up as well. And how can we get ready for that? The same discussion, when you think about it, it happened. And like we started getting the machines and all of the machines that started doing the human work. And then it happened again when we started outsourcing a lot of jobs to low-cost countries, to China and India. It was the same exact thing. And now we're having it with technology. So don't wait, and that's the advice for everybody. Don't wait until you have a meeting with your boss and your boss says your job is not needed anymore. As of today, think about what do you need to do to develop new skills? What are you passionate about? What does the market need? And how can you satisfy the need in the market? That's going to require taking courses. That's going to require more reading and volunteering, experimenting with things that otherwise you didn't think about. But that's the only way forward. Getting comfortable will get you out of your job.
Well, you're talking about complacency.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the killer, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed from a sociological standpoint as well, and this is really, especially when we're talking about female empowerment, is that there is a tremendous amount of consternation right now in our culture, and a lot of that we're reading in the media regarding victimization, and it's a victimology. And I want to get your perspective on this as well, whether it's the pay gap or perceived pay gap. And I don't know what your opinion is of that, if it is a thing or not. But do you find that there are a lot of people that come to you for ideas and lessons and empowerment that come with a victim mentality? And how do you cope with that? How do you turn them around on that?
That's such a great question. And the answer is yes. I get a lot of people with a victim mentality because it is the stories that they were told. Poor us, the glass ceiling, it is so hard, the wage gap. But my message to them is we have the power to change all of that. And when many times we're not taking action, sometimes it is easier to be a victim than to take action, because taking action would require for us to change. So anybody who complains to me, and especially when I am on panel discussions about the wage gap, I ask them, have you negotiated your last salary? Have you asked for a pay raise? And so many of them, they say no. And that's the problem. A lot of women are not comfortable with negotiating, even understanding their worth, researching their worth. They're not comfortable with that. So my role is to open their eyes and help them understand that it is our responsibility to bridge the wage gap. One time I was on a panel discussion, and one of the women at the audience, she directed a question to me, and she said, she looked very young, maybe 19 or 20 years old, and she was so emotional when she asked the question. She said, how would I describe or explain to my daughter about the wage gap, how unfair it is? So the first thing that came to my mind, I wondered how old is her daughter, because she looked very young herself. And that's what I asked. I said, how old is your daughter? And she said, oh, I don't have a daughter, and I am not in a relationship, and I'm not pregnant, but I'm preparing for the future.
You're preparing her excuses.
I know, preparing for the future. And my answer was, instead of preparing for the future, how about you influence the future? You change the future. So when your daughter arrives to this world, where wage gap is not a discussion. So I get it. So that is a big part of my role, is to help people realize we are not victims. Whether we're women or men, we all have the power to change ourselves and change our life. But that comes with hard work, and that comes with consequences that we have to live with.
You know, I'm so pleased that you said that, because I'm sure you've heard of Jordan Peterson, right? He's ubiquitous now. And he talks about agreeableness being a female trait. And whereas men are brought up to be more aggressive and go out and get what they want, and women as a female trait, and I know this is generalization, and it's going to be people that are going to send me nasty messages, but the fact is that when we talk about it from a general standpoint, women have been culturally trained to not go and fight for that one thing. And so is that, you talk about training people to negotiate and stand up strong for themselves. Is that something that you talk about in your lectures?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes, I talk about this all the time and helping people, specifically women, realize their inner power and discovering their voice and speaking up. I have a lot of women that I coach. When they first come to me, they tell me how intimidated they are speaking in meetings because they're in a male-dominated environment. So they have great ideas that they keep to themselves. And my role is to empower them to get those ideas out and make them feel comfortable, even if those ideas get rejected, even if those ideas are not like taken forward. That's okay. Who cares? If you have more ideas, share more ideas, talk, express your opinion, all of this good stuff. So yes, and I teach women how to negotiate too.
What are some of those tools for our viewers that are watching? Maybe there's a woman watching this right now that's thinking, I need to be more aggressive. How do I do that?
So how to be more aggressive? First, a lot of women, they're afraid of being seen as, they're afraid of being seen as aggressive, and they're afraid of being called the B word. And as a result, they stay quiet. So what I tell them is, I'm not talking about the extreme. I'm not saying become a B person. I'm just saying speak up in meetings. If you have ideas, share them. Continue to educate yourself. Continue to network and meet new people. I see a lot of women, and I have a lot that I'm coaching. Their voice is so low, and they're sitting and they're being closed. Open up. Raise your voice, be direct in the communication, and continue to research areas for you to feel more confident. These are simple little things, but if you're speaking to somebody who their voice is so low that sometimes you cannot hear, and the woman is sitting and she's closed like this and she's uncomfortable in the conversation, how can you promote someone like that, right? Like, how could challenge someone like that? So open up, speak, even if the team are not going to accept your ideas, speak up, be okay of making mistakes, be okay not to be perfect, and continue to move forward.
One of the illusions regarding the pay equity gap between the sexes in America today, and it's in Western Europe as well, is the reality that women do have children, and they do take time out to have that children, and there is a necessary need to be flexible in their life and their career. When we talk about that from a standpoint of career-minded women, women that want to be empowered and to advance into leadership, how do you cope with that particular issue and talk about that?
So what I talk about this topic a lot when I'm presenting to organizations, especially the one that want to increase women in leadership. Like, let's talk about like engineering companies, IT companies, that they're struggling to get more women in and more women up throughout the chain of the organization. So that's when I talk about the importance of seeing the value that women bring to business, but also creating an environment that attracts women and retains them. And one of them is going to be the flexibility, all of these things that are important. What matters is to get the work done. If the work got done at 9 a.m. in the morning, or if it got done later in the day, assuming there's no deadline, it's just we need to shift a mindset. And that's why I absolutely love the millennials. Everybody talks about the millennials and they say not too positive things. I love the millennials because they're coming with a mindset that they want to grow, they want to advance, but at the same time, they want flexibility. They don't want to be stuck in a job from not 8 or 9 a.m. to 5 to 6 p.m. They don't want to be that. They want, if they can get the job done from home, if they can get it done from Starbucks, who cares?
Work-life balance. The work.
Yes, yes. So that is important. The challenge we live in is we are like the top leadership are mainly baby boomers, individuals that are extreme, like their identity is linked to their hard work. They want to work day and night, and they want to be in the office. They want to have face-to-face meetings. They are the ones that control the policies and procedures and the future of a lot of the team. But now with the newer generation, with women getting into more leadership, that is bringing a major shift. And the shift, what matters is, again, that the customer is happy, the work is getting done, and not being so strict of how to get it done.
You know, something that has been somewhat of a disturbing trend, and I think it's definitely accelerating right now at rapid speed, is that the idea of diversity over meritocracy. Okay, where our number one rule in this boardroom of this corporation is to make sure that we've got one of each, as opposed to the best. And we're starting to see that in legislation in the state of California, your former home. There's actually a bill that's going through the state legislature right now, and it's probably going to be signed, where it's going to require one woman at least on every public board, which is fine on paper, but it's the idea that, well, we have to have one X, we have to have one Y, and so on and so forth. Is that something, well, let me put it to you this way. Is diversity that critical?
Absolutely. Diversity is extremely, extremely important. And I agree with what you said. We need to have the right person in the right seat. Mm-hmm. And just the fact that the person is a woman, is Black, is Asian, that should not be the reason we're hiring individuals for specific roles. The only problem is right now when I get to work with senior executives, and let's say they have an opening, they look around and they say, wow, well, you see, we would like to hire a woman, but there's no qualified women in our organization. Let's hire another white man, which they already have a whole boardroom, a whole team of white men. What I talk to them about is to create a talent pipeline where if early on you're looking into throughout your organization and you are developing all kinds of individuals that are diverse throughout the chain. So when you have an opening, you have so many people qualified that look different, that think different. They have different backgrounds, different religions, different everything. That's what we're missing right now. A lot of people are upset with diversity because they're talking about what you said, where, wow, we have to hire someone and she has to be a woman. And they start saying, oh, but she's not as qualified as other people. I get it. But we need to do something, because if we're not bringing diversity, we're going to keep doing things the old way and we're going to be comfortable. We need people to bring a diversity of thought, new ideas, new challenges, and to take organizations to the next level. So yeah, I believe in diversity. And I also believe that we shouldn't promote somebody just because that person is a woman or a certain minority. They need to be the right qualified person. But the most important thing is to get them there. What are you doing right now to prepare your team for the next 10 years? So you're going to have diversity from all kinds of people that are being trained, mentored, coached, all of this work to get them ready when the job opening happens.
So what you're talking about is creating a farm team, if you will. Right? Like a baseball minor league team, and you're going to be creating the players for the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Yes. But if you were to, based upon your experience right now, and this is kind of my last question for you, I know we're coming to the end here. Do you believe the corporate mentality right now is diversity over meritocracy?
Well, it depends on the organization, right?
Sure.
So I cannot talk about, like,
it's a general question. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
you seeing that accelerate?
I'm seeing that more organizations are realizing the value of diversity, which is great. They want to create a more diverse work culture, and many of them, they don't know how to do it. And as a result, they're starting to figure out what should we do. But the good news is they recognize that it is important. It's a matter of figuring out how to continue to have diversity, and not to give more credit to somebody versus someone else just because of gender or ethnicity.
Gotcha. Dima, where can folks find you?
So my website is dimaghawi.com, and that's spelled D like David, IMAGHAWI, and it has all information about my speeches, that are my keynotes, my training, There are videos there, and it talks about my coaching as well. My book, Breaking Vases, is on Amazon. So I encourage you to go to Amazon and get the copy of the book. It has the full story of my memoir. And if you want to get more details about Breaking Vases with pictures of my actual pictures and more information, go to breakingvases.com and you'll be able to see, you can read some chapters, you can see what other people said, and all kinds of good details. So DimaGhawi.com and BreakingVases.com.
Dima, thank you so much for joining us. I found it extremely informative. We could have gone on for a lot more time and talk about a lot more issues that are out there. So maybe we'll check in with you down the road. And I wish you the best of luck and phenomenal life story. Congratulations on everything you've done. I know that USD brought you back to do the commencement speech, which is, wow. I mean, how impressive is that? So that must have been really rewarding for you. So folks, follow Dima. We'll put all of her links up below this at YouTube and as well as Ricochet, and greatly appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much, Dima. And folks, you can continue to follow us at YouTube. Just make sure you click that subscribe button and the notifications so you get new interviews coming up. Follow us at ricochet.com, America's Voice Network, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all your favorite podcasts. And you can follow me at David Sussman on Twitter. Again, very special thanks to Dima Ghawi, and we'll be back again soon. Whiskey Politics.